Supernormal, the exhibition and theory. From the late 1950s onwards, American artist Jasper Johns sculpted everyday objects and immortalized them in bronze. Regarding his flashlight series, he said, "I had a particular idea in my mind what a flashlight looked like, and I wanted to go and buy one as a model. I looked for a week for what I thought looked like an ordinary flashlight, and this made me very suspect of my idea, because it was so difficult to find." When Johns began his series, the US was undergoing a post-war economic boom. After the austere conditions of the Great Depression and World War II, Americans had money to spend and consumed conspicuously. In response to the demand for more, newer, better, companies had to differentiate their products through marketing and design. Products needed to be flashy, with memorable taglines to grab the attention of consumers. Over-designed products took over the market to the point that in 1958, Johns could no longer find a plain old flashlight. The disappearance of the quote-unquote ordinary object and subsequent human yearning for the normal persists. In the 2000s, industrial designers Naoto Fukusawa and Jasper Morrison developed the term supernormal, also in reaction to over-designed products. Their 2006 exhibition of the same name coincided with both the US housing bubble and the Japanese economic recovery after the 90s stock market crash. Like Americans in the 50s, Japanese people had more disposable income and cheaper goods to buy. Japanese companies also produced more, newer, and better products. The introduction of fast fashion brands like Uniqlo and Gap allowed consumers to buy more new clothing for less money. Reacting to the emerging mobile phone culture and a diversifying customer base, Japanese phones took on new over-designed forms to showcase their specialness. Morrison and Fukusawa questioned this notion of design as specialness. Often designers aim to make a statement or provide stimulation, turning the design process into marketing and a tool for consumerism. In addition to degrading the profession of designer, Morrison notes that objects that are designed to attract attention are usually unsatisfactory, ruining the atmosphere of a room or failing to perform its intended functions. Supernormal is the antithesis of manufactured specialness. The term originates from a conversation at the 2005 Salon de Mobile in Milan between Morrison and designer Takashi Okutani. Morrison was describing Fukusawa's aluminum stools for Magis and marveling at the design's ordinary yet appealing quality, when Okutani chimed in with an affirmative, "Supernormal." To Fukusawa and Morrison, an object becomes supernormal through its relation to people. Familiar motifs and forms shaped by use allow the design to facilitate this relationship between person and object. Unlike the specially designed object that disrupts the everyday, the supernormal feels natural and inevitable. However, people usually overlook the supernormal, accepting it as a quality of everyday life rather than perceiving its beauty. To visualize this difficult to articulate idea, Fukusawa and Morrison collected and displayed 210 items that they believed epitomized supernormal. The exhibition at Axis Gallery in Tokyo featured mass-produced household items, from door handles to trash bins to barbecue grills. Neither of the designers consulted with each other when curating objects, but nonetheless agreed with each other's choices, suggesting that supernormal contains a universal quality. A supernormal object put forth by Morrison and Fukusawa is the glass tumbler. The dual-cylinder form alludes to the stacked configuration of glassware at cafes and restaurants. This detail renders it specific to a casual dining environment. Through its association with cafes, a sip of water from the tumbler may taste more refreshing, as dining out is often a treat. By recontextualizing the object, the relationship between object and person becomes clearer. Supernormal asks us to look past aesthetics and recognize the depth of our relationship with objects. Given the supernormal standard of good design, the designer does not revolutionize, but refines existing forms, working incrementally to distill normality. Fukusawa states that supernormal cultivates and references memorable elements of everyday life. Small moments like the clicking of a gas stove top or the brilliant white of a porcelain cup are mundane yet satisfying. By analyzing human interaction and taking these sensory impressions into account, the designer can create objects that transcend their normality into something exceptional. For instance, the Muji air filter appropriates the slatted air ducts found in virtually every modern building. The louvers within the rectangular frame indicate the direction of air, visualizing the movement of a usually invisible force. The filter's rounded edges and satin finish attributes a sense of calmness to the piece, contrasting with commercially dominant futuristic designs that tout lights, screens, and logos. The designer can also subtly deviate from expected forms, materials, and finishes to reveal the mundane object's beauty. In doing so, the designer asks the user to recognize their affinity towards the normal, as Fukusawa states, reconfirming what we already hold important. For example, the gem clip, a slightly altered version of the paper clip, has tiny balls attached to the ends of bent wire. This addition prevents the metal from scratching and marking the paper when used, refining the original design to remedy a minor but annoying problem. The small design change catches the eye and prompts the viewer to reassess the familiar curves of the paperclip. Each spherical cap serves as a start and end point, guiding the eye like a drawn path through a maze puzzle. Although the function and appearance of the paperclip has not drastically changed, the gem clip makes visible a pre-existing hidden beauty. Dorit Terstege, former editor-in-chief of the design magazine Form, wrote that supernormal designs are sophisticated forms and details that clearly reveal the fruitful legacy of traditions and progenitors in design history. I agree with this assessment, that supernormal and normality builds upon and are in conversation with preceding design. However, Terstege's statement begs the questions, what traditions? And who are the progenitors? When surveying the catalog of featured items, the objects listed skew towards Japanese, American, and European manufacturers and designers. This bias makes sense, as Fukusawa and Morrison are Japanese and British respectively. The objects they have curated are specific to them and their concept of what a chair, bottle opener, or shoe looks like. Morrison, Fukusawa, and the Western academics that have covered their work fail to acknowledge the cultural specificity that supernormal relies upon. While Fukusawa and Morrison's consensus on the supernormal style surpasses the Eastern-Western dichotomy, both designers have worked all throughout Japan, Europe, and America. Supernormal depends on exposure to images and forms, which can culminate in a nationally specific perspective or a multicultural one. The multiculturalism that the supernormal exhibition portrays is not universal. Instead, it is specific to the centers of the design industry, from which these designers have emerged from and work within: Germany, America, Japan, Italy, etc. Supernormal is deeply personal. While this feeling of familiarity can be shared amongst millions of people, your perception and appreciation of the transcendently ordinary arises from personal experience and identity. During his quest for an ordinary flashlight, Johns too realized that his concept of normal was quite personal and is not really based on one's observations at all.